I think it's important for us to touch on this as far as men are concerned. Last week, in fact, I think it was our guest Benjamin who was saying how a lot of men are very hesitant when it comes to talking about their issues, sharing the challenges that they're facing, and more so even going out to say that, you know what, I need to seek some therapy. And that's what we want to talk about here today. My guest is Kenneth Kariuki. He's a psychologist with Hisia Psychology Consultants. Karibu sana to the show.
Thank you.
And indeed, I could see you nodding there as I was stating those facts, because I think in many ways, okay, a lot of us are nervous about therapy. We have this warped idea of what it is, but I think more so men. Like it's like if you to say that you're going to therapy, it's like something is really wrong with you, or now you're weak and you're not man enough. Where do you think that sort of socialization came about psychologists?
Yeah, I think we need to look at what do we understand when you mention the word that you are a man. And there are two things that come into play. One is what we call the box. You know, like the man is fixed in a box. On one hand, the man is supposed to be tough, is supposed to be enduring. The man is not supposed to show his feelings and all that. And then on the other hand, this man is also supposed to be a very smart person. You know, it's supposed to be kind and all that. And this now brings in the issue of our socialization. What kind of a man were you being brought up to be? One of the issues is this man is not supposed to show when he has a problem. You're not supposed to show the kind of weakness. And so therapy is taken like you're going to be showing your weakness. You're going to be showing that you're not man enough. So the definition of who a man is actually is where we start going wrong, I would say.
Okay.
The other question is about when you're defining who a man is, there is a tendency of defining a man in a continuum. What I mean by a continuum is on one side there is a man, on the other side there is a woman. So this man is supposed to be the opposite of a woman. So if a woman is talkative, the man is supposed to be quiet. If the woman is expressive, the man is supposed not to
Yani wasifanane kabisa.
Sifanane.
Wow.
Which I think it's something that is wrong.
Yeah.
But all the same, it is there. And you can see it even on the streets everywhere. If, for example, would come into studio, become emotional, cry, people would say, ako kama mwanamke.
Ati new mama.
New mama. Is behaving like a woman. And this comes even when it comes to therapy. I can tell you from my own experience, when I have couples for therapy, you kind of see women are more expressive. They will express their emotions more. Men would like to look at their problems as financial issues. You know, she's the one with the problem. So even the emotional issues becomes the woman's problem, not the man's problem.
Okay. All right. So what then do we do about this? Because there's also a question about the high suicide rates now among men. Especially among men, actually. And indeed, you know, as mental health issues continue to come to the fore, we're seeing that a lot of men are very likely to mask their problems because of this whole socialization, that new mama, ama sijui ni nini, and these negative emotions, and they feel like they don't want to burden anybody. And so that way just sits with themselves.
I think the first thing is talk about it. Be open about it. You know, everything sounds right until somebody tells you it's wrong.
Right.
We need to start saying it's not right. And you also need to look at how do we behave. Like, you know, when you have an issue, there are two ways of behaving. One is what we call internalizing behavior. Behavior like you don't want to show anyone, you don't want to show that you have a problem and all that kind of thing. And then you have more of externalizing behavior, whereby, you know, you would go out, talk to someone, share about it, and all that. The problem here is that men will tend to have more internalized kind of reactions and bottle up feelings. And even when you say that you're socializing, like when you go to a pub and things like that, you don't go to a pub and say, you know, we quarreled, I have a problem, I have this issue. You would kind of sit there, talk about your successes, talk about work, but don't talk about feelings.
And actually, it's good that you've raised that, because there's a question too about social anxiety. And now that men don't have these places where you can go out and, pump up to the boys and, jiringa huko about which car you're looking at or which bonus you got at work, and now you're confined to your home. Do you think that's having like a major effect on men at this time with this whole corona pandemic?
I think it would greatly. One, because there is a whole change of lifestyle.
Yeah.
There is a lot of unpredictability. You don't know what will come next. You don't know how long this will be. So whenever there is that kind of change, there will always be a lot of anxiety, there will be a lot of worry, and this will bring change in behavior, change in the way we are looking at things, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right now, what we are seeing, and even if you listen to the minister, what we are seeing is that Kenyans are like in a state of denial. There is a problem, but you want to act as if there is no problem.
Yeah.
When you see someone on TV saying that I was sick, you say, no, that's the government.
It's a story.
It's a story. I would say that is in state of denial.
Okay.
The problem you're having is that we don't have much time to go through all the processes and all of that, because the disease is spreading faster.
Right. I don't know what you're waiting for. I don't know if you're waiting for our numbers to quadruple for us to really take this seriously.
Yeah.
But in many ways, I think this is one of those opportunities for men to really take charge.
Exactly.
Right? In their homes, in their families, and even just being vulnerable about their own fears and anxieties about corona. Because, of course, there are many who at this point have either lost their jobs or they're going through pay cuts, businesses not doing well. And you have to wonder, who are they talking to? Because they don't want to be vulnerable to their wives or their children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that is where we need now to start changing it. Start saying you need to talk about your feelings. Be open about what you're talking about, what you're feeling. And to know that men are human. I was talking to someone the other day and I was saying, I think we should add a H before COVID. Say human COVID virus. Because it's for all of us.
Yeah.
Men included.
Yeah.
Much as I'm also worried about being sick myself, I'm also worried about my family. I'm worried about where I'll get my food security. And looking at our culture, men are supposed to provide. Men are supposed to pay house rent, for example. And this is where we'll get most hit. And so I think men need to come out and say, this is where we have a problem.
Yeah, we're struggling to protect our families.
We are struggling to protect our families. We have our own fears. And these are the fears.
Yeah.
And there is nothing wrong with having fears.
Yeah. It makes you human.
It's being human.
Yeah.
It's just whom you are.
Yeah.
You don't have to be anything else. And we also say it's okay not to be okay. You don't always have to be okay, because then you would not be human.
Yeah, certainly. Absolutely. Better to admit that and find help. And the thing is, we even the Bible says we have not because we ask not. Exactly. And so sometimes even as human beings, like there could be someone who's, just there in your circle who could maybe have a suggestion for you or an idea that you hadn't thought of, where they can extend some help to you. But because we're so proud, about looking like we have it all together, we miss out on a lot. And then that's when we hear these tragic stories too, sometimes of suicide. And so I want to ask you, Mr. Kariuki, how then do we encourage men to begin to talk out a bit more? Are there certain things maybe we as their spouses should or should not be doing? Are there things that maybe as men, as peers to one another, as boys, you guys should also now start inculcating?
I think the first thing is to get out of the box. Start thinking out of the box. Start knowing that I can do this. You have mentioned well, like what happens to the ladies. Don't expect too much. Don't expect like after this program your man will just open up and just say, if there was someone who came to the studio, said this and this. So appreciate the little bit that men will start opening up to.
Yeah.
I find that a lot in my work. Like when I talk to a man, they'll give you pieces, bits and bits. The more you appreciate them, the more you accept them, the more you accept that, okay, you're struggling with this, I know you're struggling with it, but have your time, just do it. They'll open it up more. Of course, men will always cling to their pride, and they will always have a problem with when you criticize. So before you criticize, first listen.
Yeah.
There's someone who has come up with a theory of 3-to-1. Like, if you want to criticize me, first appreciate 3 things that I have done well.
Okay.
All right?
Ladies, I hope you're taking notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, start by saying, like, if just an example to be more concrete. I like the way you dress. I like the way you are struggling with our family, and it's a hard time, but I like the way you're holding on. I like the way you're encouraging the children and all that. Then don't put a but.
Okay. Yeah, we're told not to say the word but.
But, you see, but would mean that, I was saying this in preparation.
Yes, nilikuwa nakupaka tu mafuta
Nilikuwa
kidogo.
nakupaka tu mafuta. So it's like you want to divert. But you can say a statement like, it would even be better if you expressed yourself more.
Right.
Like, I have been waiting for you to talk about yourself more.
Right.
You're more concerned about us.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that.
Right.
And I would also appreciate if you also talked about yourself. Like, you became the topic. And there's nothing wrong with becoming the topic.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with saying how you feel, or what are your vulnerabilities.
Right.
And I think that would go a great step towards helping these men.
Okay.
And then, of course, even when you're introducing therapy, I find that very hard for men sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I see men literally being dragged by their wives to come for therapy. And you can see it even in the way as you're having conversations and all that. You can literally see that this man was brought here by the
And it has to be voluntary, doesn't it? Otherwise, the change will not happen.
It doesn't
he has
happen.
to want it for himself.
Yes. Therapy is one of the things that really doesn't depend on the therapist.
Yeah.
I only come there and I step in as a catalyst.
Yeah.
But you do most of the work.
Are you able to share with us, maybe, if for the ones who eventually have opened up to you, if there are specific things perhaps that they tend to talk about, if there are certain areas about a man's life or his fears and concerns that they would, if you're able to draw any sort of linkages or chains to them, because I think that would help us also be a bit more self-aware as we talk to men that, hey, generally this is a very sensitive area, so just kuja pole pole, come slowly as a woman, or as your family, we need to be very delicate with how we handle those situations.
I think most men would have a pattern. You cannot say all men, but most men would have a pattern. They would start from being more material, like food security. Even if you listen to most men right now, they're talking about how do we pay rent, how do we pay for our food, how do we do this, how do we get money. So they'll start being more general, more concrete, more material. And then as you get slowly into what all this is all about, then you get into the fears. And I think that is, if you are able to get a man to talk about their fears, to say, this is what I fear. I fear my pride being lost. I fear losing my family. I fear
That's
maybe
a big
losing.
one.
Yes. So if you would get a man to get to that level, where they would talk more about, this is where I'm vulnerable, this is my weak point.
Yeah.
This is where I don't want anyone to touch.
Yeah.
And be secure about it. And, like most men would like to be so secure that you not use this against me later.
Yeah.
And I think that is where most of the fear is. So even like when we have couples, sometimes you see this is the fear, you separate them, and the man will tell you, this is what I'm fearing. And then they will tell you, don't say it. Don't tell her. Because then they would fear that it would later on either be used against them, or it would be just exposed.
Wow.
It would just be exposed out there.
Wow.
And then I would be like naked.
Yeah.
To my neighbors, naked to my everyone.
Sure.
So I think the question of building trusts
Absolutely.
in relationships is very important in men. Knowing that if I tell you and if I show you my most vulnerable part, you'll be a part of hiding that from anyone else.
Yeah.
And especially, from not only other women, but also from men.
Yeah. Yeah.
You hear of cases where you spoke to someone spoke to someone else, someone spoke to someone else, and it finally came back to you.
Yeah.
I think that is the greatest fear that most men would have.
All right.
Yeah.
So I guess my takeaway then from this as we wrap up this discussion is certainly the work is on the men to decide that they want the change, and that
Exactly.
even as you said, there's not much you can do as a therapist if the person does not want to heal and become better. But at the same time, this question of trust and relationships, and it's a challenge to all of us women. So if you're there, constantly complaining about your husband doesn't open up to you, are you trustworthy enough, for him? Does he feel safe with you? Does he feel that you have his back, really?
Yeah.
I think is what it's boiling down to. So I really want to thank you for this conversation.
Thanks
I think it's been eye-opening for both the men and the women, because I think sometimes we approach this as, nyinyi wanaume hamchukui therapy, hamwendi therapy, but no, we also need to make sure that we're helping to facilitate for that to happen. So thank you very much, Mr.
Maybe
Kariuki.
as you wind up, I like the point that you have just said. It's not just about being trustworthy. It's not just about keeping the secrets, but the man feeling you can do it.
Yeah.
That feeling that they can trust in you
Yeah.
is what is most important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, as much as we look at them as strong, they also want to be covered and protected. And you as a wife are in the best position to do so. Very quickly, as we wrap up, I don't know if you're doing any sort of telecounseling or anything like that. Is there an opportunity for that, or maybe people can follow your work in some way? Do they reach you?
Yeah. You can follow me through Hisia.
Okay.
Hisia, they have their website and all
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
And I'm one of their counselors.
Okay.
So if you get to Hisia, then it's easier to
Okay.
get to me.
All right.
But my Twitter handle, everything is Gishuru Kariuki.
Okay. Gishuru Kariuki.
Gishuru Kariuki.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. We do appreciate you. Guys, we're going to take a short break now. And when we come back, we're going to be bringing you some praise and worship courtesy of Afleo Nairobi's worship team. Very excited to have these guys here in studio. I myself actually am a part of them. And that's coming up next as we just encourage ourselves even as we look forward to the weekend. Stay tuned.